I'm going to give you a brief update in terms of what's been happening in overall Toronto real estate market as a whole. This doesn't necessarily apply to a specific community, but this is overall market performance, and it gives us a good idea in terms of the sentiment in the market. And then I'll start with August of 2023 numbers comparing to the year prior, and then we'll get into mid-September 2023 numbers. So overall in August of this year comparing to last year, we had less transactions happening by 5%, 5.2% less transactions happening. Average selling prices were basically the same. We were up by 0.3% overall in Toronto, and we had more listings coming to the market. We are up by 16% in terms of the number of new available properties that are being listed in the market, and that trend has been continuing well into September. Moving on, the sales to new listings ratio, which is a measure of how fast are these new properties that are coming to the market moving, and that number went down by 10% comparing to August of last year to 43%. Anything above 50%, in my opinion, would constitute a very strong seller's market. Between 40 to 50% would be a balanced market. Interestingly enough, it takes less days, at least it took less days in August for property to be sold. We were averaging just under a month in Toronto overall, which is 17%, almost 18% less time it took for a property to be sold comparing to last year. Now, as far as condo market is concerned, just real quick review. Condo apartment sales were up by about 20% comparing to August of last year. Average selling prices for condos are down by about 4% year over year comparing to August of last year, and this trend seems to be continuing into September. And the average one-bedroom rent for an apartment went up year over year by almost 12% in Toronto. Now, again, this is overall market. Each community could be pointing towards a different average number, but rents are up across the board. The chart you see here is the average price index performance for different property types in Toronto. The composite number overall, we're up, as I said, slightly by about 0.3%, but the only category that went up year over year is basically single family houses. Moving on, I want to get into what's been happening in September. September is the beginning of the new cycle of real estate, so we will naturally get more listings coming to the market. We should start to get more activity from the buyers. So let's see what's been happening. So as far as freehold properties in Toronto are concerned, we had 32% more new listings coming to the market when we are comparing the second week of September of 2023 to second week of September of the prior year. So it is true that we're getting more properties listed, and we had less transactions happening by slightly lower by about 3% in terms of overall number of transactions for freehold properties in Toronto for the second week of September compared to last year. Now this trend, so we're getting more listings, we are getting less transactions, so my favorite ratio, which is sales to new listings ratio, should go down, and it did. We went down by 27% comparing to second week of September last year. This points towards a direction that could be more favorable for buyers, but interestingly enough, as far as freehold properties in Toronto, the average prices are up by 8%, as well as at least for the transactions that have been happening into mid-September 2023. So it remains to be seen if this increase of new properties, new freehold properties that are being listed, if that's going to have an effect as for average prices to point towards a lower price, but it didn't. That's for freehold properties. Now that is not the case for condos. So condo market, and when I say condominiums and anything but freehold properties in Toronto, so far, mid-September, we are having more listings by about 56% more listings comparing to the same period last year. So that's a huge spike. And total sales are down by 31% comparing to the same period last year. So that should create a downward pressure for prices for sure. Now, the sales to new listings ratio for condominiums and anything but freehold properties is down by 56%. That is a significant change in the dynamics of the market for condos, and week over week we didn't see an increase for activity as far as sales. It was in fact down 14%. If you compare it to to freehold properties, comparing the second week of September to first week of September, we actually saw a lot of transactions happening. We were up by 74%, but not for condos. The decline seems to be continuing as far as new sales to new listings ratio. Moving on, average prices for condos, anything but freehold, we are down by 9%. If we compare the transactions to the same period for September 2022. Again, this doesn't necessarily indicate that a specific property should be down. It's just overall market. It more or less points towards the sentiment of the market. That's the maximum that could be derived from this information. It shouldn't be applied to any specific property. Anyways, this is my update for what's been happening so far overall in Toronto property markets for freehold and condos.